Hi, everyone. It's Tim Shaffer with Arete Coaching Group. And I'd like to talk with you today about a very important leadership skill, and that's active listening. I've worked with so many leaders and teams, and I still find that active listening is a underappreciated and underdeveloped skill set. And so I'd like to offer you some very simple ways to demonstrate active listening by what you say in response to others. Now, when I talk about active listening, what I mean by that is paying full, careful attention to someone else, the speaker, without judgment, and being able to demonstrate your understanding of their experience, of their intentions, of their feelings, in other words, what they're saying, so that the speaker feels heard, acknowledged, and respected. So here are 5 things that I hear leaders say that I think they're trying to be helpful. I know the intention has to be good, but it's having the opposite effect. So the first thing I'll share with you is I hear leaders say to someone in response to what they heard, listen, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about something else and get your mind off of this. And I know for leaders that the intention has to be good there by saying that, because they're saying, listen, I don't want you to worry about this. I don't want you to be concerned. So let's talk about something else. Take a break. And the reality is when somebody is sharing something important to them or something that is bothering them, saying, let's talk about something else may have the opposite effect, leaders, than you want it to have. Instead, usually what that person hears is, this is not important. Maybe I'm not important. What's wrong with me? Why am I focused on this? And maybe, my leader is saying that I shouldn't be. Yeah, not good. So instead of saying, let's talk about something else, I encourage you leaders to lean into what the person is saying and ask more questions. So you could respond simply by saying, you seem upset. Tell me more. Or, listen, this seems really upsetting for you, really frustrating for you. What else should I know? The second thing I'll share with you to help demonstrate active listening even more effectively, what I hear leaders say that doesn't work is when leaders say, come on, you should get over it, move on. And instead, I would encourage leaders, again, lean into what the person is saying, demonstrate understanding, clarify your understanding. But I would say something like, it appears that you're still upset by this, right? It appears you're still struggling with this. What else do I need to know? What else should we talk about? What else can we do to help in this situation? I'm asking questions, but I'm leaning in to that. I had somebody once tell me 2 months after my father passed away, you should get over it, move on. Your dad would want you to move on. And I know that person's intention was good because I know that person. The reality was that was a horrible thing. It just hit me really wrong. And I know it must hit other people in a negative way as well. Okay, number 3. When somebody says something and we say as leaders, oh, I know how you feel. Now, after talking with leaders, most leaders have told me that they say that as a way to connect with the other person, as a way to sympathize or empathize with the other person, to say, listen, I've been in your shoes, or I am in your shoes. The challenge with that is 2 things, I think. One is that we really don't know how the other person feels. We know how we feel, and so we then project that maybe on others, so we don't really know. We only know what we hear, what we see, what they're telling us. The other thing that often happens when people say, I know how you feel, is that they follow that up with their own story about when this happened to them or something similar, which then gets the focus off the person who's speaking and onto the person who should be demonstrating listening. So I say keep the focus on the speaker. So instead of saying, I know how you feel, instead reflect on the feelings and say, that must be very sad for you, or that must be frustrating for you, or that must make you really happy. Could be a positive feeling there. But again, it's reflecting and demonstrating and saying, I hear you, see you, but most importantly, hear you. Okay, number 4, we only have 2 more to go. Number 4, leaders, please don't say when somebody shares something with you, your first follow-up, please don't let it be, oh my gosh, let me tell you what happened to me. Again, leaders have told me that if they have something in common, something similar, they want to share that as a way to connect. It may work for you and the other person, but what tends to happen based on feedback from many people with whom I've spoken is that when the leader starts talking about their own experience, what happened to them, how it made them feel, what they did, then the other person feels less heard because the speaker is now inadvertently making it about herself or himself. So be careful there, leaders. Instead, I would encourage a reflective statement and question. So when the person says something, speaks, then say, all right, here's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that you're still upset, that you're, example, missing deadlines because the following people are not turning in their reports on time with you, that you followed up and they're not responding, and it's really frustrating for you. Is that correct? So when reflecting on what you heard, not only in the facts, but also the feelings associated with that, I always say, leaders, follow it up with a question to make sure that you've actually heard. Is that correct? Did I get that right? Is there anything I'm missing? Because that way, if the speaker on the other end says, no, that's it, you've got it, then green light, leader, you know the other person has been heard, they feel acknowledged, and likely respected. Or they could answer you, well, you got most of it, but not quite all of it. And that gives you an opportunity to say, all right, what did I miss? Share that with me. I want to make sure I get it all. The final thing, leaders, I'll share with you to demonstrate active listening in your responses. What not to do, number 5, is use the words at least in your response. Maybe you've heard this before, but I'm going to share it with you again. I'll share a story with you. I guess it was about a year ago. I had my car in for service, and I remember asking the service representative, when should I call back to find out what's wrong with the car, what the damage will be? And he said, well, I'm going during my lunch from 12 to 1:30, I'm going to go look at apartments because I've decided to move closer to work. And so let's talk at 1:30. And I said, okay, 1:30 it is. Apartments. So what's important to you in an apartment when you're looking for an apartment? And he said, well, I want it to be modern. I want it to, look new as much as possible. But what's most important to me, and what I love most, are balconies. I love sitting out on the balcony early in the morning and have a cup of coffee. I love sitting out on the balcony, in the early evening time and after work just to relax and decompress, if you will, from the day. And I said, oh, nice. Well, good luck finding the apartment and the perfect balcony. So fast forward at 1:30 that afternoon, he and I were speaking, and he said, let me tell you about your car, which he did. And then I said, tell me about the apartment search. How did it go? And he said, well, the apartment was really nice. It was modern. The kitchen was incredible, but it didn't have a balcony. I was so disappointed it didn't have a balcony. Leaders, one response I could have given was this. Well, at least it was a nice apartment. I mean, finding a nice apartment is difficult sometimes. So at least it had a nice kitchen, and it felt modern to you, and you seemed to like that part. So all of that's true. That I'm reflecting back to some degree what he said, but using the words at least, what I have found minimizes the impact of what they've just said. So it's like I'm trying to sugarcoat the bad and just focus on the good. And the reality is that the bad part of it is just important for this person, if not more important than the good part. So instead of saying at least, catch yourself, listen for it, and just stop. And instead, actually, what I said to him, I'll give you the example, is listen, balconies are important, aren't they? So I don't use the words at least. Instead, repeat back what is important to them based on what you heard, and then ask, you know what, balconies are important, aren't they? And he said, yes, they are. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to keep looking. And I said, all right, good luck with keep looking and finding the perfect balcony. All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening today. Those were the 5 things that leaders say that don't help them demonstrate active listening, and 5 things you can say to better demonstrate active listening so the other person feels heard, acknowledged, and respected. Thank you.